everybody for joining us in our podcast today, where we are talking about financial services ISAC and the latest innovation in financial services. Obviously, the two aspects that is getting many people excited, which is artificial intelligence and quantum technologies. And today I'm very pleased and very privileged to have Michael Silverman, who is the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation with FS-ISAC, which is Financial Services Information Sharing and Analysis Center, to talk to us about these two very exciting topics. So thank you so much, Mike, for joining us today in the podcast.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It's wonderful.
Nice to talk thanks. To you. Yeah, great. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't have the chance to catch up in Singapore while you're here about, I would say, like 2-3 weeks ago. That would have been a fantastic opportunity to catch you and talk to you about these two topics on site. But right, so now, in the West Coast, 6 a.m. your time and 9 p.m. my time. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.
I know it's late your time too, so thank you.
Yeah. So for our audience who are not too familiar with ISAC or Information Sharing and Analysis Centers, there are some podcasts that we did with executives from the OT ISAC and also from the Health ISAC organizations. So please listen to those podcasts as well. And of course, if you want to get more information about FS-ISAC, please go to the website, right? FS-ISAC.com to find out more. So without further ado, let's kick off. Right. So I thought we can start with AI first, because that's on the top of everybody's minds.
It really is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I thought we can look at this through 3 topics. So one, how are financial services, or rather the sector, adopting this technology? And what are the kind of concerns from a security perspective? And how can organizations mitigate some of these concerns? So tell us, Mike, you are best placed to talk to us about how financial services are adopting this technology, artificial intelligence, given that you are FS-ISAC.
Yeah. Well, can I start with overall, the pros and cons of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT and generative AI, and go from there? I think that will lead down to where financial services is specifically using this. So the good parts of generative AI is that, look, it can take a massive amount of information and help you find the answer you're looking for very easily, very quickly, very succinctly. I mean, as it will enable non-technical users to do advanced searches, queries, and really find just that nugget that they're looking for. And it's the first tool that I've ever seen that really permeates business and technology at the same time. Yeah, we've had technology innovations, we've had new cloud or phones or databases or whatever, but this one really changes both the way we fundamentally work and how we deliver it. AI can work across lawyers, customer service, industry SMEs, developers. I mean, every single role in an organization can be impacted by this, and it's just truly amazing. But look, there's downsides.
Financial services, right? Yeah, that's right.
Oh, especially in financial services. Yeah, absolutely. But look, there's a downside too. While it lowers the barriers of entry for employees to use these things and consume it, it lowers it also for people trying to do malicious activity on our systems.
That's right, yeah.
It will be easier for people to write malware.
Exactly.
Phishing emails will be far more accurate, right? We used to train people, if you see a lot of typos in an email, probably phishing, just ignore it.
That's right.
Now we're going to have to look at new ways of detecting whether this is phishing or not, because the emails will be that much better. Fraudsters will develop tools to do with decryption easier, etc. Right. So there's really a lot of things here. Another risk that we have, especially in financial services, is that you don't know whether the system is telling you something truthful or whether it's what's called hallucinating or just inventing some facts, right? And that's really important. If I need to trust it, our whole system as financial services is built on trust, right? We trust that banks or financial institutions are going to trade funds or be there on the contra side of a trade. Our customers give us monies, assuming that they can take that money out, or we're going to do the right things on their behalf with that money. So it's this whole system. We've spent hundreds of years building trust into financial services. If we can't trust this underlying tool, we can't have that erode the potential trust of the
That's right,
overall
yeah.
system, right? So we have to be really careful about where we use these things.
There was a lot of discussions about how some of these automated, say, for example, loan approval systems is going to work using AI technologies, right? How are you going to ensure that the data that you use to train these models are unbiased, right?
I mean, that's the classic example I've been talking about for years with traditional AI is loan decisions, right? You don't even, that's just simple, I'll use a fancy term here, neural network that can do that. Generative AI and traditional AI both have the same problem underneath it, if you will, that it's
Okay.
only as good as the data you train it with.
Right,
So
exactly.
let's take that loan decision calculator. I love it. It's a great example. If I only give it people who make a high salary, right, and train it for the nuances of whether yes or no based on some other attributes, their credit history, other sort of things, then it will only know how to work with people with high salaries. If then I say, oh, here's someone with a lower salary, well, it's never been trained on that, it's going to give me erroneous details.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's going to have that inherent bias. So we need to ensure the data in is good. We have to make sure the data out is good. We have to know the trustworthiness of everything in the whole system, or we have to know where we can't use the system. And now here are the outliers of the system will not work in these cases. We have to think of different approaches there. So yeah, very much a problem.
But how is generative AI going to add to the problem? You were saying that traditional AI, you already see these kind of problems. So how is generative AI going to make it worse? Will it make it worse?
It can, because there's a few different aspects. One is there's an attribution issue. When you use these generative AI systems, if you look at their terms of use, it says specifically, if you take the output from these systems, you have to give credit or attribution to saying that generative AI put this output. Many people ignore that step, or they gloss over it, but it could open us up to legal action. Next, for a lot of these open systems, commercial systems, etc., we don't know the underlying details of what was trained for these what's called large language models. There could be copyrighted materials in these LLMs and this training databases, so that the output could also be copyrighted, and we could unknowingly be using copyrighted materials, which would again be infringing on copyrights and could really cause issues for us. So it gives us even more concern about what's coming out of these systems.
And obviously also data privacy issues as well. You have to make sure that the data that you use, well, with loan decision and all that, right? You will be relying on a lot of personal data as well.
You have to know the security of the data you're putting in the query side. Absolutely. On the query side, firms also have to think about, if you're developers, am I putting my proprietary source code in there? Am I potentially leaking that as well? Right. So there's a lot of concerns about data leakage going into the query, going into the training, on the output, the whole system. We really need to think carefully about how we use these things. Absolutely.
So what kind of other security concerns did you discuss at the APAC Summit while you were in Singapore when it comes to generative AI?
One of the big things is ethics. Right?
Ethics, right. Okay.
Yeah. Just because a system can do something doesn't mean we should be doing it with it. Is this the right thing for us to do? Is it good for our financial services to be doing this? Let's take the overall concept of insurance claims or a loan decision calculator or whatever. At some point we need to ask ourselves, should we be trusting this with a computer? Is it safe? Or we as an ecosystem agree that that's an acceptable use? Oftentimes we'll say yes, but we need to start thinking about future use cases of where do we actually say yes or no. And we can't wait for regulation or legislation to tell us these things.
That's right.
Those things tend to be a little reactive, right?
And also quite high level as well. They probably will know your business as well as you do, right?
Yep. So we need to rely on what's called morris prudence, or the culture of your firm, to really think about, would we feel comfortable putting this out? Would we feel comfortable if others, following what's called Kant's more categorical imperative, would we feel comfortable if other firms also did this, right? Do we then as an ecosystem say, you know what, yeah, this feels good, maybe this doesn't?
Okay, so when it comes to ISACs then, information sharing and analysis centers, is this something that the organization is sharing amongst your members right now, like discussion of, the kind of ethic considerations and concerns when it comes to adoption of AI technologies and generative AI?
FS-ISAC itself would not get in the middle of these discussions. We
I
would
see.
bring our members together to facilitate these.
That's right.
What FS-ISAC is doing is bringing members together to build frameworks. We have what we call the AI risk working group. We have several different things we're looking at. One of them is, what are the foundations of acceptable or good use of AI in the sector, and how do we make sure we keep it secure, ethical, free from bias, and other sort of things, so that we as a group community go, this is sort of the ethical sort of boundaries and the proper way to do it. And then it's up to each firm to interpret that for themselves.
That's right. Okay. So we have talked about some use cases, we have talked about some concerns and also some mitigation measures. So some of these efforts that FS-ISAC is engaging your members to put together, to think about this framework for AI. So I know that it deserves a longer conversation, but in the interest of time, we will have to jump to the next innovation, which you also talked about in the APAC Summit as well when you were in Singapore, which is quantum technologies, right?
Oh, wow.
So I think, so that's another big one. And a lot of people are saying, wow, okay, it's just going to break our, encryption systems that's underpinning our digital infrastructure. And then some say, oh, wow, you need millions and billions of qubits. That's not going to happen for ages. And then some say, right, okay, why not we harvest now and decrypt later, right? Gather all the information and then wait until we have the technology and just break everything and release all the secrets. So what is the current so when it comes to financial services, what is the current status right now when it comes to quantum technology?
To be honest, it's a little murky of what the exact current status is. Okay. Let me just take a step back so everyone here understands what it is. Classical computers look at things sequentially. If we're going to test the numbers 1 through 100 through a system, we have to test it sequentially. 1, 2, 3. Modern computers have what's called multiple threads or cores or processors, so that they can divide up the work and say, okay, you do 1 through 10, you do 10 through 20, and we can do that in parallel, but we still have to look at things sequentially. Quantum computers, it's amazing. They can look at all of the range of possibilities simultaneously and narrow in on the right answer. Only thing that's limiting them is the size or the number of qubits or bits that they can process at any given time. We believe that current technology allows us to handle 50 bits at any time in systems around the world. When the system gets to closer to 128 bits, it could start to break some of the underlying cryptography that we know of today. Now, you may have heard in the news that there's a potential development in something called room temperature superconductors, right? If that is real, that will accelerate the time it takes and the speed at which we can build quantum computers. Right now, initial estimates are saying that's probably false. So the original estimates of somewhere between 2 to 10 years still feel somewhat likely for when quantum computers will be sufficiently large enough to break some of the underlying cryptography. But I don't want to say that I'm doom and gloom about all of this here, Jane. I'm not, okay? We're already starting efforts to let's get ahead of the problem. And let's start doing some of the right things now so that we can be ready and be prepared for when this technology does advance.
So what is one right thing? I heard about, all this PQCs, post-quantum cryptography, right? Coming out with algorithms that can withstand some of these quantum computing powers.
So the National Institute of Standard Technology in the US and a few other groups are looking at new algorithms that would be what's called post-quantum or thwart or not be resistant to attacks from quantum computers. They're settling on some standards and have been taking painstaking research to ensure that the standards they do put out are in fact valid and not breakable, right? And they started with 8. they're down now to 2 or 3, and they're
Okay.
really trying to make sure that these are valid.
Right.
But even then, there are things we can do before they're even ready.
Okay.
So, like I said, cryptography today is built on the size of that key lengths. And there's different, there's 128-bit, 256-bit, etc. What our recommendations are to people is, if you were to find out 128-bit encryption was broken, would you even know what applications are running that today?
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
start doing that inventory today, right? And start bringing those up to 256 bits, right? You immediately push the clock that much further on when we have to worry about quantum cryptography and buy the time.
Yeah.
The reality is this is going to be hard effort. This isn't just a simple patch. You have to rewrite, sometimes replace. Oh, and we're going to have to coordinate across an industry. Your point of sale systems have to work with the merchant banks, and traders trading on an exchange all have to be talking the same. We have to, coordinate all this across all the different players. So it's going to take time, right? We may not get everything at once. So then we have to think about what are the riskiest things that we want to cover first, right? Each firm needs to start doing that risk analysis for themselves of where is the riskiest data. You mentioned harvest now, decrypt later. For people that are unaware, what that means is, even if they can't break it today, some nation states and some very large entities might be taking in some internet traffic now that's encrypted, and then using the technology in the future to break it. Now, I'm not too worried about financial services in this regard, because a lot of what was in that data has likely changed. Your password will have changed in a few years from now, right? The account holdings will have changed, some other things. Yes, there are some risky things we have to worry about. I'm a little more concerned on the military side, where they can see strategies and tactics and things that may not change over time, rather than financial services. But yes, it's absolutely something we have to worry about and start thinking about. Those may be the riskiest sort of things that we upgrade first, so that we get over this harvest now, decrypt later problem.
So your advice to organizations then is to do an inventory of your digital infrastructure to understand the encryption algorithms that's running your infrastructure, and assess the priority of which ones are more important to address, which one holds, I guess, confidential, sensitive data, right? And probably has very weak encryption. So where are the firms right now that your members that you speak to? Where are they all sort of doing bits and pieces of this inventory checks at the moment, or is everyone quite relaxed?
We're in financial services security. We're never relaxed. I'll be honest with you here. We're always on guard. But a lot of the membership has helped develop some white papers that we have up on our website today to do those inventory, risk analysis, and other sort of things. So we've taken a year and a half, we've developed those materials and have shared it TLP-wide. Any industry can look at them as reference and start doing them themselves.
Oh, okay. So it's like checklist of things to go through or something.
Absolutely, right. And there's more to that. There's the current state processes, there's a future state to start thinking of, et cetera. So we're thinking about all of that. We're also working with our vendors, the vendor specific in financial services, to ensure they're ready, because it's a third party issue as well. So we need to ensure the whole ecosystem.
That's a good point.
We don't have that public. That's, we're talking about that privately, of course, but we're all trying to work, we're all in this together. We've only got one shot to do this. FS-ISAC is also leading what's called the Financial Services Global Congress on PQC, where we're taking working groups from countries around the world and putting us all together and sharing our own learnings, our own write-ups, so that we don't reinvent the wheel or work against one another. We only have a few years. We only have one shot to get this right. We shouldn't be working against each other. We're all in this together. Financial services is a global problem, and we all want to be working together and get ahead of this problem. So we brought these groups together, and it's amazing how we're just starting to share things. White papers, best practices. It's amazing how well we're getting along and helping each other.
So
every summit
Right, go on.
Every FS-ISAC Summit that we've had over the last few months, this has absolutely been a topic. People have given presentations on it, educating people. Yeah, it's really very interesting.
Okay, so quantum technology and obviously also AI as well is also going to gain more and more traction. So for organizations who are not members of financial services organizations who are not members of FS-ISAC at the moment, and listening to the potential concerns arising from these two new technologies, and they want to learn more. So the best way is for them to, I guess, go to your website and look at the white papers.
The white papers are there. AI will have more information on this fall as well. We want to do it right. We don't want to just release noise out there. PQC absolutely is there. It's been developed, and just start reading these things, start doing the inventories. The inventory is not that hard in that regard. We already do what's called asset management in financial services. We're looking at what systems we have and where we have to do that for regulatory things. So adding cryptography will not be that hard. If you're not a member in financial services, consider joining FS-ISAC and being part of this discussion. But even if you can't, just keep abreast of what your national level groups are doing. Look at what NIST is doing. Just keep an eye in the news as to what is happening so you can stay abreast of those current developments as well. We're all in this together. And it all comes back to, we have to keep the trust in the system for everyone. And so we want people who are in this ecosystem want to help others because they need everyone together on this.
I think these are very exciting times. You're talking about two technologies or innovations that is going to be hugely impacting the way that we are working, right? Yes. A lot of the infrastructure that we have built, right, over the last few decades is going to be very disruptive. And I think it's very scary, but very exciting at the same time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So so I can't wait to get an update from you. Maybe next year when you're in Singapore, let me know, and we can get a face-to-face interview then.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you face-to-face for sure. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much, Mike, for your time today. Thank you for sharing with us the two exciting innovations that are happening today.
Oh, thanks for having me, James. Wonderful to talk with you.